Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum.
Malikum.
Hello, Dr. Mino. Good to see you now. Perfect. So I think Natasha is trying to connect with Dr. McCoy. So she should be joining us soon. And I must say, what a delightful panel we have, huh? All gorgeous ladies on the screen, all together.
Yes.
I hope
Hello, Dr. Severin.
can handle this.
Hello, Dr. Severin.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
So we just take a minute to see if Dr. McCoy can be with us before formally starting. And then maybe Dr. McCoy can join us as and when she can. So I am Shaha Tariq, and I am associated with our flagship campus, PF chapter, here in Karachi, Pakistan. And I do need to thank Ms. Nahid Zera for organizing this wonderful event. There's been a lot of learning going on since morning. And of course, our academics department with Amaina in the lead and Ms. Seema here at PF chapter. So we've all been sort of, benefiting from this session since morning, and it hasn't stopped. And I'm quite excited to be talking to you, Dr. Severin. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes, Severin Mino, yes.
Okay, perfect. So, and then Natasha is here with us. Dr. McCoy will be joining us soon. So I guess I'll start with Dr. Severin. Is it okay if I call you Severin and we work with that?
Please, just Severin is fine.
Perfect. Okay, so you have a very impressive profile. I was sort of, thinking that you should be at least 80 years old with this kind of accomplishments on the paper. And surprisingly, it's been sociology, which has been your main interest.
Yes, but sociology allows for a lot of different specializations. So I did a lot of work on gender and sexuality, a lot of work on intersectionality, understanding the intersections of race, class, gender, and citizenship. And then with citizenship, I started working with migration, so sociology has allowed a huge breadth of interest to come into my work.
Actually, that is the, sort of the brightest and most attractive part of your profile, because we offer sociology from grade 9 onwards. Hello, Dr. McCoy.
Hello, how are we?
Nice to have you on screen.
And it's lovely to see you all again.
My pleasure. I'm Shaha Tariq, and I am with PF Chapter. And as I just said, I have some lovely ladies to thank for, besides the one on the screen already. So Ms. Nahid, Ms. Seema, who sort of heads our PF Chapter flagship campus, and Amaina, who leads our academic team, and tons of others. Welcome, all of you. I'm really excited about this session, and I look forward to learning, not only for myself, but all the students who are joining us and all our faculty members and our colleagues who will be online with us. So we have this very, very distinguished panel, and with Dr. McCoy from Ulster and Natasha from Ulster Universities, and then we have Dr. Severin joining us from Habib University. And the theme being how professional demands are changing and new degrees or qualifications are evolving, and how we need our students to sort of get the idea, internalize the idea that they have many more options. So while going through the profiles, I could see that Dr. McCoy and Dr. Severin both, one business and one sociology. So a very, very interesting match here, and that sort of, brings my question as quite an integral question here, because for me, it is very important for my students to understand the relationship between sciences and humanities and social sciences and how 21st century is going to be all about this holistic approach with creativity probably as the leader of all such movements or approaches. So I'll just sort of take the liberty of asking Dr. McCoy to sort of take this stage here. And she's been an advisor to the government. She's been partner with establishing business schools, QAHE, and being a senior fellow of higher education, being a member of Institute of Directors, and more than anything else, chairing the Belfast International Art Festival. So that sort of, threw me off a bit because, I said, oh, this is what I was looking for. How do we connect art and business? And, how do our students need to make this connection? So I would ask you to take that question.
Great. Well, I suppose I would start by making an observation that education is changing hugely. When we think about it, way back, the purpose of education was actually to impart knowledge. And the teacher stood at the front of the class as almost the sage on the stage who imparted the knowledge to the students. Now, that is a very, very old model of working. If we look at now at education, information itself is ubiquitous. We can get information at the tip of our fingers just by going through some search engine. So it's not about information as such, it's about knowledge, it's about what we do with that knowledge. And therefore, the skills that we want to develop in our students going forward are very, very different from those retention skills potentially that used to be very, very important. So what makes the more rounded individual now? I suppose it's not just about what they know, it's about who they are as individuals and how they are and what they bring then to situations where they have to problem solve, where they have to make decisions, where they're operating in a very ambiguous world where things are changing by the moment, and that ability to be able to stand in ambiguity and really to make sense of situations and then be able to apply some analysis and bring others to where they need to go. It's those sorts of skills that are very much in demand. We're doing a lot of work with Deloitte, for example. We have co-created a program for them, specifically for them, looking at how they take more techie and science-orientated students and give them the skills that really will help them to understand the human dimension of the problems that they are coming up against in consultancy and other avenues. So it means for us educationalists, we have to look at a very different approach. So it's ensuring that in parallel with their discipline, the students are developing skills in being, in doing, and then in achieving results, because one drives the other. It is very much who we are that will determine what we think and what we do, and that in turn will determine the results we get. So it's a kind of total shift, and it's a big, big challenge for educationalists.
Absolutely. I so agree with you. And who we are. Recently, I've been throwing these questions to my students in corridors and in sessions, and it always throws them off balance because when you ask them who you are, it's quite deep for them to sort of dive into and come up with logical answers. So they come up with all kinds of random answers. And knowing oneself is so important. You mentioned education as it was and how the paradigm is shifting and how the teacher needs to be the guide on the side. All that in place. But would you like to expand on your interest in the art festival, in the visual and the performance arts, and how that connects or can be applied to the fields of business?
Absolutely. I was asked to take over the Belfast International Arts Festival. It was floundering and losing money. And I, at that time, I thought, no, I've too much on. And then I went to meet with the artistic director, and I really understood how important art is to a society. It's almost like taking the pulse of a society. And when we look, for example, at India and the huge cultural issues, and Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, all of these countries where actually big culture really started way before any of the European cultures. So we're really quite lagging behind in many ways compared to Eastern cultures. And when we look at these and the impact that it has on society, I think we really truly see the importance of it. So I urge all of our government bodies to see the arts as an investment and not a cost. Because investing in the arts means that you're investing in people's ability to experience other lives, other cultures, other ways of being. And again, it is that ability to see problems, issues, phenomenon from multiple and competing perspectives that allows us to really come up with sticky solutions to the world's problems. And I think the arts has a huge role to play in guiding our thinking around that.
Absolutely. There's one striking thing written on your profile here for me, and that was the third sector organizations and your interest with the third sector. So would you be looking at the arts as the upcoming third sector, especially in cultural rich spaces like Pakistan?
Absolutely, and when I have travelled through Pakistan quite a lot now. I think there's a real affinity between the Pakistani people and the Irish people. We are lovers of culture. Ireland is known as the land of saints and scholars. And I think that we have a great affinity with the Pakistani people in respect of that. So when I talk about what I know, I don't know, I'm not an authority on culture in Pakistan, but I certainly see that it mirrors quite a lot of what goes on on the island of Ireland, where culture and cultural pursuit is very much valued. It very much allows us to see different things from different perspectives. I think that's the important thing. Companies are actually using the arts now to help people to see things from different angles. There's a fabulous book called Ways of Seeing, and it is amazing. I have used this on the MSc in Executive Leadership, where I've taken leaders from top organizations and we perhaps bring them to a museum and we ask them to look with a very different eye at what they see and how they interpret things. And it is amazing then how those insights can translate into insights for their organization, that make them better places, that make them more people orientated. And again, if we look at all of the future of work stuff that Deloitte are looking at, it's all around human insights. What is it that makes people tick? How do we get the best out of people? How do we work in multicultural societies? And we see how the world is shrinking. It is very much shrinking. So we've got to be preparing our students for working and competing for jobs in that global context.
Absolutely. And I think in terms of Pakistan, we also need our students to start thinking on these lines, because the scope for entrepreneurship here is huge. A lot has not been done in the third world. So they have this opportunity to actually start afresh, to create new ideas and to evolve new concepts. So I'll sort of leave you with that thought, Jackie, and I'll move to this other gorgeous lady here, Severin, and she deals with sociology. So it's, with business, we hop over to sociology here. And Severin has had, again, an amazingly rich experience, especially with cosmopolitan diversity, capacity building, and expatriate adaptation. So I would like you, Severin, to actually expand on expatriate adaptation for me, because this brain drain from Pakistan is a real heartbreaker for educationists like us, because our brightest of the lot leave the country for better prospects or for higher education. And, it's not so often that they come back.
Yeah.
So, when we talk of expatriate adaptation, are we looking for equal opportunities everywhere? Is there a way for me to clog? Is there a way for me to hold these kids back to myself? How do we educationists work on that? So, with your background in sociology, and now that we've had Jackie talk about the third sector, what would you like to contribute to this?
There's so much I want to say. The first thing that I can answer specifically to the question of expatriate adaptation is really that adaptability, flexibility, agility in the face of new challenges, and particularly in the face of new frames of reference, like coding and decoding new messages across cultures. I think that, for those who want international careers, and it's something that I encourage, although I am in Pakistan, and I am dedicated to working in development. And part of that development is teaching with a sense of locality, right? So we engage students with communities locally so that they see they are needed here. But in the same time, what they also witness, outside in society, is a great deal of disenfranchisement. People are disenfranchised, and that is also, and especially the youth and young adults of today, and from government, from major institutions. There's a real need for youth integration into the economy, into politics, into culture, into the arts. And I see some fascinating subcultures and countercultures emanating from grassroots right here in Karachi. There's rappers, there's theater troupes, there's sports clubs, there's so many. This city is so rich in terms of cultural production, and the youth have pockets of option, but in the same time, feeling connected, like we can make a difference, is really difficult for them. And they look at opportunities overseas, and they think about the quality of life, and often the sense of the sense of maybe feeling disempowered here in Pakistan about how do we go about all of these major problems. Very simple things, for example, like access to water, access to electricity for the lower strata of society. The level of impoverishment, levels of illiteracy. Those are real problems, and there is a need for educated people to stay in Pakistan and take on these challenges, and be the intermediaries between the disenfranchised and the greater system. So adaptability, I would say, is being able to tackle, different problems and be able to think from multiple lenses, as Professor McCoy was talking about, is that ability to see things from multiple angles. And, even in the business sector, if a CEO can have a team of 3 people, and each 3 of these people can see the world in 3 or 4 different ways, as a philosopher, as a sociologist, as an engineer, and as something else, right, that may perhaps through different languages, and then each person brings that to the table, then that CEO doesn't have to have a working table of 12 people. That CEO can have a working table of 3 people. And so the more angles we can tackle in terms of understanding projects, developing and designing programs and implementing them, I think is really important. And there's a new, this is the age of information. We're looking at adaptability to new technologies, to the mindset that everything people write and do on the internet is logged. There is big data, and it's not a world where the youth have to understand that this is a world where Big Brother is there, and they can't get away with sort of goofing off on one platform and trying to be serious in another platforms. It often very much collides, and so there's a sense of accountability, I think, that that needs to develop in the youth of today in terms of managing that consciousness that, it is it's a network society where it's very, very easy for anyone to get information about us, and everything we put out there is sort of it's a marker of who we are. And so it's really important for the youth to adapt to these new challenges, and to realize that there are so many different platforms, that one day you're on this platform, the next day you have to use another platform, and that autodidact ability to learn by yourself and not be completely, helpless in the face of not knowing something, right? Where the resourcefulness of finding the solution that you need for the moment that you're in is really, really important. And that goes again with abilities to communicate, emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence, includes 4 things: self-awareness, know yourself; other awareness, be aware of the, of the feelings, experiences of others. And that allows you to, one, manage yourself better. That's the third element, self-management. And the fourth element is other management. Whereas, trying to get the best out of others is the challenge of working in diverse workplaces, right? Between and across cultures. So, when we're looking at cross-cultural relations, now we know with telework, with distance working and online working, there's a greater impetus than ever before to be working with cross-cultural teams around the world. And that means that we have to be able to put ourselves in the shoes of others and do a little bit of research on where people come from, and taking an interest in that, I think, is really important for that, global and local sensitivity to sort of, mesh together. So I think, there's just so many things that are changing that, we have to be extremely agile in this era and these circumstances.
True. And Severin, just sort of building on what you just said and what you shared with us, thank you for that. How do we, because you see, when MBA came, so MBA gave a lot of dignity to the study of business at an undergraduate level. And students thought of not doing MBBS or going for a BE or an engineering degree, and maybe MBA can be done. And so we had a big turn of crowds towards a master's in business. Which degrees would you mention for social sciences or liberal arts that you feel can help in a situation as you see around in Pakistan? By the way, it's delightful to know that Dr. McCoy has been through Pakistan so many times, and you are actually sitting here. So we probably will be eating your brains even after this session. Okay, so you should get ready for that. And Dr. McCoy, you have to let us know next time you're in town. We wouldn't let you, get off. Natasha, of course, will be coming in because we have a relationship with Ulster. And so just going back to this question, which degrees would you mention for students to pursue if they wish to contribute more towards development of Pakistan as a society?
Well, I think right now any degree that provides a very strong foundation in research is what I would suggest, whether it's research in sociology or economics or anthropology or and the idea of research is because in Pakistan specifically, we need data. We need data in order to develop policies, right? When we say evidence-based policies, results-based policies, we don't have enough data. So, and even the last census is highly contested. The data that emerged from the last census. So again, the ability to generate, data, both qualitative and quantitative, the ability to analyze it, the ability to draw from it some conclusions that will inform policies. I think that is the biggest challenge. And the idea of research also ties into accountability and the evaluation of programs and projects, so that there is accountability for implementation, because a lot of stuff gets put on paper as an action plan or as a policy, but then it's not implemented properly. So the idea of data management and data gathering, data analysis, and data management is also tied to ideas about accountability for any institution, whether it's a business. Businesses like to to think in terms of performance evaluation, and that's great for profit. But then, other parts of ethics, like the environment or the ethics with regards to labor relations, are, sort of put on the side because profit is more important. So I think, changing our values in order to build a more sustainable society where the inequalities are lessened is actually really important, because that's part of the reason people feel disenfranchised. But with regards to governance particularly, and even NGOs, it's the ability to gather data that can show that programs and projects are being implemented properly, and evaluate the performance, the results of our endeavors, so that we can keep on tweaking and reforming the approach up until the point where things go well, and the machinery sort of works. And so I think that the asset of a business degree is important, but there's not enough perhaps emphasis on the components of doing good research, both qualitatively and quantitatively. So I would really suggest to combine maybe a management framework which allows students to understand the importance of managing your time properly, managing your resources properly, doing things in a timely manner, all of those things that go into a logical frame, for example, in project management. But in the same time, having very strong research skills to be able to say, what kind of data do I need to gather during the project, during the program, not after as an afterthought, but as part of all programmatic activities, there's data being gathered so that you can have a results-based discussion on at midterm report or final report, and so we need to integrate data, a better understanding and engagement with data at every step of every operations. And it is the era of Big Brother, but it's also how we make a case for policies.
True that. And I think data also works as your torch, because it sort of determines which way to go forward. Otherwise, you tend to flounder, and sometimes you just lose your way and you're like not where you plan to be. Before jumping to Natasha, because I would like to know if admission office is actually doing their analysis or only looking at the grades here. And this kind of information, the one that we've just sort of being shared with by Dr. McCoy and Dr. Severin, about how business, how arts, how social sciences, how data is reshaping the society, and our students need to be aware of this. So if Ulster has programs that allows this to happen, and if Ulster is looking for students who are interested in exploring this field, I'll just take a comment from Ms. Naheed here, and then Natasha, the stage is yours.
Dr. Severin has said, yes, very rightfully. New degrees are actually coming up with new dimensions of qualifications which students are going through. And when you put up the question to Natasha, because I have been, thinking on the same lines, Natasha has been familiar with Pakistani students, just as like, Dr. McCoy. So I would like to hear, before I give any comment, in fact, I would like to hear from both of them. Because they are familiar with, kind of career approach. We have very static career approach, or, it moves in a vertical direction. So I would like to hear from Natasha first, and then Dr. McCoy. They have been speaking to our students. As what exactly is their analysis, and what is their advice to our students that they should develop their vision for others, other careers which are coming up in, let's say, in next 10 years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. So I guess the first thing, and I know Professor Jackie McCoy will reiterate this as well, is Ulster, I guess, is always at the forefront in terms of working with industry to make sure that the range of courses that are offered at Ulster are always in line with industry. So as industry changes, and that is global, that's not just in Northern Ireland or in the UK, as industry changes, so does the course provision at Ulster. Within the business school, and Jackie, I know you can touch upon this in a bit more detail, but one of those examples, especially in relation to big data, is we are now delivering a course that is business with data analytics. So it's that seeing in the marketplace that there is a demand for students with a commercial mindset, but they understand how to use big data to benefit a company, benefit the industry that they're working in. I guess from Pakistan, and again, I'm very privileged to have been able to travel across Pakistan, meet many of City School students, all who I have to say are incredibly well researched. You have, students have a clear trajectory in terms of what area you want to go into. I guess, and again, I'm speaking professionally, but also personally. I would say to students, always keep an open mind, because as we have seen, the world changes very quickly. We have seen a move towards big data, and indeed, in Pakistan, we get many students that go for both business courses mixed with data, and also our masters in data science, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. There is definitely a move in that direction. So what I would say personally is do look at that sort of broader, I guess, image. Personally speaking, my background was actually in humanities. So I actually did history and French. And that was based on a pure love, an absolute love for the course. Humanities and social sciences and business courses, they will always teach us, analytical skills that can then be used when you go into your career in big data, for example, in how to argue from both sides, and many students will obviously be looking at the likes of law. So, that kind of you don't need to get from A to B in a as fast as possible, in the straightest line as possible. In today's day and age, with a network society, as we've all spoken about, with such a small global, world, as we've spoken about, we're connecting here today. We can take these little, I guess, tangents to get where we want to go. So it's just not, we don't need to get there as quickly as we possibly can. We need to get that experience, build those learnings. In Northern Ireland, for example, we do, in the Department of Economy does, in conjunction with Ulster University, every single year they do a skills barometer. So where are the skills gaps? Where are the shortages? And I'm sure Pakistan, they'll be similar. But, Northern Ireland and Pakistan are quite similar in, the school that I went to. Every single student was advised, do law, do medicine, the very traditional courses. And now we have an oversupply of those, whereas actually it's actually business and finance is one of the leading kind of skills gaps in Northern Ireland. Actually, creative arts and design, languages, you obviously have skills gaps in engineering, IT, that is booming. That will always be there. But we are actually seeing there is now a skills gap in languages, in creative arts, and there's now an oversupply in the likes of law. So it is just that, I guess, getting students to see the bigger picture, as we're all trying.
Absolutely. And I think that's our battle also. What we are trying to do here is to sort of make them understand the importance of interconnectivity of arts and social sciences, with sciences, with IT, with artificial intelligence. You see, it's sort of coming in together, as I think Dr. McCoy and Severance both mentioned, that initially education was holistic. It was industrialization, if I may quote Sir Ken Robinson, God bless him, that, we sort of lost our purpose of education to employment. And somehow it's sort of coming back together. We now need employees who can handle 10 different things. We do not need people who can do only so much. We do not need puzzle pieces. We need people who can create big pictures. So I think, and with data, that picture becomes clearer and brighter and more vibrant and stuff like that. But again, how do we take this very important message to the student? How do we make him understand what we are talking about? As Oves, a young man, just put up a very simple question. would these jobs be still productive post-COVID? And would these courses continue to be productive? I mean, this is not timely. This is not because of pandemic. The world has changed. We have a space station. We need somebody to tell us stories about what happens there. So how do we take this message down to the student? How do we make them internalize this? So I've thrown it open to all the three gorgeous ladies here.
I'd love to chime in on this. I think that students are concerned about their future, and when you tell them that one of the realities of today, and which is going to be even more salient in the future, is that they don't live in the same world as their parents, where they're likely to do one job for 40 or 50 years until retirement. They're likely to have multiple jobs, change places, keep searching for themselves, because the education that perhaps they've received was so utilitarian, that it was so specialized, that they were just thinking education is for the job, right? Whereas the kinds of the models of education that we're looking at today are much more empowering, and they're holistic in the sense that they seek to cultivate the individual, the collective, as well as the intellect and know-how. And the kind of workplace they're gonna integrate is one that is extremely fast and changing, is one that in which they're going to be called upon to change functions multiple times and to keep on. And if they stagnate, they may shift laterally, but they're probably not going to improve in terms of status and socioeconomic upward mobility. So again, and I'm telling students these days that this is an age where probably just one degree won't cut it. I really think that people are going to have to go into interdisciplinary degrees, into multiple degrees, all over the place. My own background is I have a background in project management, and I've done administrative sciences, as well as various field gender studies, as well as migration studies. So having that sort of modular. I think in terms of the quality of education, we're going to be going towards modular education, where
bring the walls down. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, interdisciplinarity, and again, I cannot stress enough the importance of languages and arts as well. But if an employer is looking at two CVs and they're pretty much comparable, what might make the difference is that one person speaks 3, 4, 5 languages and is extra polyvalent for a kind of mixed workplace, and for the ability to again manage diverse teams. So with those languages, you can manage diverse teams because you speak multiple language. So in Canada, there's even in the public service, I used to be a policy analyst for the government of Canada, and there's a bonus for people who are fluent in French and English, being the 2 official languages, and only those people are allowed to go up in management, because they have to supervise bilingual teams. So imagine that with multiple languages. I think that we are, looking at that kind of employability and polyvalence in order to make it. And the reality also, and it's I know it's very hard for a society like Pakistan to really understand this, but we're also in an era where the cost of living and the buying power is not increasing as fast as salaries, and that reality means that a 1 salary home is likely to struggle. And so, people are going to need to be extra polyvalent with that too, and allow, for a 2 salary household to happen. And that is a good thing in a way, because it means that women are now called upon to develop their potential and develop their skills across multiple disciplines. And I love to see girls in coding, computer coding. I love to see so I think that the workplaces are diversifying and changing really fast. And to answer the question of the young men who asked that question, I think that if you have the right education, you'll be able to enter any workplace and even invent your own new kinds of jobs, because the jobs that will exist in the future are really open to creativity and think think in a way, in the way of not necessarily depending on the system providing you with an opening. Like at a certain point, you have to make your own opening. You know, start your own NGO, find the funding. You know, and there are so many opportunities for crowdsourcing, for finding various kinds of means to produce these new enterprises. And social enterprises is the way to go too, because we're also facing a lot of problems with regards to inequality and scarcity of resources, especially in Pakistan. So profit for the sake of profit, I think, needs to be really questioned, and we need to bring in ethics in enterprise, in innovation as well. So ethics, I think, is a crucial part of a good education.
Absolutely, and I think this pandemic has pushed values upwards. We had sort of, lost them somewhere in monetary gains, and where you can make more money, or what works, what does not work, but commercially. But somehow this COVID era has really brought forward the importance of values, because I think we have sort of connected again with the families and friends on a stronger platform. But I would like to take this question to Dr. McCoy now, because this is about incubation centers and how new startups are now sort of, ruling the day. And we know of so many who are doing so successfully. And the younger generation is so keen on having their own startups. But along with that, there's this parallel world which has become functional, and that we call the web. So whether it's Insta, or whether it's Facebook Live, or whether it's Twitter, everybody's become very active on a parallel platform. And there's lots of money to be made if you have the right number of likes. So it is ironically killing the value system again, because it's all about now getting the likes. So whatever gets the likes. And I mean, that's there too. And then you can make a lot of money there too. So how would you look at that from the point of view of incubation centers, business development, keeping the big data in front of you? How do you look at that?
To that question, I'd like to just to take a couple of steps back and maybe talk a wee bit first about what I observed in the city school when I visited. And first of all, it's what I felt when I went into the enclave, which was like an oasis in the middle of the city. I felt a presence, a calmness, but a high productivity nonetheless. So it was almost that sense of people working and working well, highly productive, but at the same time in a very relaxed state. And I think
can I use this for our advertisement?
Absolutely. I think it is absolutely, it's a culture that
thank you so much.
It's an intangible, but it is so real, so real. And what I think this culture, if you like, that has been created, it's a culture that I think values the development of the whole child. I saw evidence of music, of the arts, of sport, of debating, of as well, of course, as the hard sciences and so on. So you've got smart kids, you attract very smart kids. And I think what you're doing there is that you're inculcating that ability to learn and to learn well. And that is the competitive advantage that your students will have no matter where they go. They will be able to, and it's going back to our previous speaker's point there about being prepared to move from a situation where you went into one job and you stayed there, but the ability to learn a new skill, take on board new information, do another short course, do something different, adapt to your changing circumstances, moving from that being really, really comfortable in that sense of ambiguity. And I think that is the confidence that you are building in your students that will take them anywhere in the world. So first of all, I congratulate you wholeheartedly on that. I really do. And that comes from really solid leadership. That comes from the top. And I evidenced it firsthand just how effectively as the teachers walk through the campus, and the children are attentive, they're in tune. There's just so much to commend there. That does not happen by accident. There is a lot of hard work goes on underneath that, and a lot of really close attention to detail, but also to the honouring the values of the institution that you have created. And I evidence that very, very greatly. So it is that ability to learn faster than others that gives you the competitive advantage in this cutthroat world. It's also about getting the children to get in touch with themselves and what's important to them. That emotional intelligence that was referred to, our cognitive intelligence will tell us what's important in the world, but our emotional intelligence will tell us what really matters to our lives, what really matters to us. And I don't know very many people on their deathbeds who will, rehearse all the qualifications that they got and think, didn't I do well? But rather they will measure their lives and their life's worth in terms of the relationships that they've built, the people they have touched, the difference that they have made. And be that at a local level or be that at a much wider level, it's the contribution that you give and that you make, regardless of the field that you're in. But my sense is that the more rounded an individual you are, the better a contribution you will be able to make. And each and every one of us and every child within your school is in this position of privilege. They are privileged because they have parents who support them. They have teachers who are there for them. They have everything. They have the world at their feet. And with that privilege, they really must take on board that with privilege comes responsibility. And responsibility means that they have to think about, I have been given, therefore what do I give back? What is my contribution going to be? And I think that you guys are doing a fantastic job with that agenda, and I commend you fully for it.
Seventh heaven or seventh cloud, whatever works here, because we are looking at Ireland, so there's a lot of magic and a lot of legends and myths that I can sort of capitalize on. But you spoke about emotional intelligence and about value systems, and I would just like to share that we have recently been given a project to connect what the students are doing in school, their core curriculars, with sustainable goals. And of course, water and air and, all these soil and all these are there to pick up from and to sort of work with. And this child, this girl, A levels, and she turns around, she tells me that, Miss, I don't want to work on water and soil and air and all this kind of stuff. I want to work on sustainable happiness because I feel we need more of that. And I have so many friends who go through depressions. And so they've established a club which is called Mellow Minds, and they're working on that. And they're working on a video to showcase sustainable happiness, efforts to make people happy for a longer period of time. So, just touching on that, it's so important that emotional intelligence, you mentioned it. And I would like to ask Natasha that when they meet students, do they look at the emotional intelligence quotient along with the IQ?
Absolutely. I guess one of the real joys of my job is I get to meet so many students. And I guess through that, I get to meet so many different types of personalities. And yes, whenever, I guess it comes down to morally, as well, I am very clear with students to say, if you plan to study in the UK, that is a huge leap. You know, that's a big lifestyle change. So you need to know who you are. You need to know what you want to get out of this, because whenever times are hard, you will need to have those objectives and those goals in your mind, you know, to be focused and to be resilient. But that also comes down to knowing, as we've all said, who you are in the first place. And also having that, it's really important to have, and we touched upon that as well, you know, we're all very blessed to have such a strong support network, and that's keeping, you know, whether that's virtually or with your friends as your student is doing, it's having that support network and knowing that you can talk to them and go to them. And I guess we also kind of touched upon social media and how can we spread this message, you know, that you need to get to know yourself, that don't just listen to maybe the traditions of the past of types of career for, because that might not align with your personal goals. You know, once you actually have a think about who you are, what you want to be, what your values are, you know, secondly, yes, we need to look at big data and the facts, but I guess a lot of it does, whenever I meet students, it comes down to storytelling. And that is one of the beauties of social media. If we're going to take any positives from social media, sometimes it's learning from people that we wouldn't get the privilege to meet face to face. And it's down to storytelling. You know, I could speak to students for hours about my own personal experiences, that of family, friends from around the world. And I guess it's also connecting people. You know, there is no better joy than connecting. You know, Jackie touched upon it. You know, whenever, you know, your end goal should be, how have you made a difference to people? You know, what effect have you left on the world? And I guess going back to that, when I'm speaking to students, how do I make sure that they're, you know, that I identify that they have done that? I ask them the questions. Why is it you want to do this course? Is this because of family legacy, because parents have perhaps done it? Or have you researched the course? You know, we talk a lot about spoon feeding information, and you know, how we're moving away from that to be individual, to be thought leaders in our own right. So I think that, I guess, in a roundabout way, that boils down to listening to others. But storytelling has it's just such a, you know, it can motivate people. It can, you know, Jackie and I worked completely. You know, Jackie and I worked very, very closely for so long, and I read Jackie's bio, and you know, I was just so impressed. And out of that, I thought, oh, I need to ask Jackie about this, this, and this. You know, so listen to leaders, listen to people that you respect, and likewise to your peers, just as your students are doing with that project.
I so get you, Natasha. And you know, at my ripe age, and I'm not telling you how old I am, but I still read Shel Silverstein regularly. He is my inspiration. Anytime I feel down and under, you know, his poem makes it work. And I feel that storytelling is an art and it needs to be encouraged. And I think Dr. McCoy here will be able to sort of, you know, connect it with her business programs, because there's so much of story that goes into the new startups, how they have come up, what made them come up with the idea, how they are addressing the gaps in the society, and how that is turning around monetarily, you know, good for them. So we have only about 6 minutes left on the clock with us, and I really don't want to go. I wish we could have a 2-hour session today, because you know, there's so much to learn, and we have such a lovely distinguished panel. So we'll sort of give 2 minutes to each of our guests, and I'll start with Dr. McCoy to, you know, for a final comment and her analysis. You'll have to unmute. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I can you hear me now? Okay. I suppose I would wrap it all up by saying, you know, the best thing that you can the best thing that you can do for yourself is to start on that journey of knowing yourself, getting to know yourself, getting to know who you are, how you are, how you want to be. If you're not just exactly there, and none of us are, it's a life journey, it's a lifelong work, a work in progress. Who you are, how you are, how you want to be, how you want to influence others positively, how you want to contribute. If you get that all worked out, my goodness, you will have a direction of travel that will take you far. And it won't almost matter which discipline you use as a tool to make that contribution. What is
Lovely
most
word.
important is that you will be doing it, and you will be leaving a legacy behind you that you will be very, very proud of.
How beautiful. How beautiful. Using education as a tool to get where you wish to be. I think that's wonderful. Dr. Severin, would you like to take up?
Yes, I would like to. This is the first little bit is a message to parents, and it is
Do that.
for parents to allow their children to explore who they are and to follow their own path, because too often in Pakistan I see parents that impose a particular line of study, and they're really not listening to the child. So as much as the youth of today have to listen and be receptive to their elders, in the same time elders too have to be more receptive to the inner power, the inner sense of direction of the youth, and I think that we don't give them enough credit in terms of that power of self-defining and that power. And I was gonna add, you're gonna need grit. You're gonna fall on your bum, and you're gonna have to get up, back up again, and you're gonna, for every yes that you get 10 no's, so or more. And so being able to sustain your ambitions and sustain your effort despite falling and having to get back up again and again. So that grit is really important, and ultimately I think doing things with your heart and keeping your mind open. I was like 34 when I started liking olives. And this is just a metaphor, because all my life I thought I didn't like olives, but I kept trying.
What
And
were
then,
you missing?
yeah, I had to fall in love with olives in Turkey. I had them from a pot, from a tin, from in other countries. And then when I went to Turkey, finally I had Turkish olives, and wow. So the idea is that keep trying the things you think you don't like. Expose yourself to a book that you disagree with once a year, and just keep confronting your limitations, because you never know when suddenly the wall is going to fall and you're like, wow, suddenly I can do this. I've confronted this fear, I've confronted this dislike, and I think we grow as people when the brain remains plastic, and we need to keep reworking our wires, our internal wiring. So I think that keeps us alive longer, happier, and that idea of lifelong learning. You're never gonna get bored if you know how to keep learning, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like trying and getting that tune right finally. Yeah, great. Natasha?
I'm laughing because Dr. Severin, it was only about 3 years ago. I'm 34 now, and it was about 3 years ago in Greece that I finally
You have announced that. You look 20.
It's the makeup. But no, I guess just as a very final closing point, it's just to say to students and both to parents, it's not a race. We get students that many students will ask me, can I do this course in a shorter time period? Why?
Agreed.
Why limit your experience? Take it all in. And just as a final point as well, students are doing a lot of research. What is it they want to do? Please also look at the holistic view of any institution you're going to study in, because the end goal is you want to be happy. You absolutely
emotional quotient,
completely.
Grit, no fear. That's our takeaway from today's discussion. And we are so looking forward to meeting you in person. 3 gorgeous ladies who graced our screen. 4 actually, but Nahid is our own. So I'm not going to sort of, give her the compliments right now. But thank you so much. Thank you so much. And we look forward to learning more and meeting again very soon. Thank you from City School, and special thank you from PF Chapter Campus. We're all grateful to have.
Thank you, Natasha, Dr. McCoy, and Dr. Severin. Thank you very much for being here with us. We are really honored with your presence, and very well, very well discussed points and messages taken well by all the students and our faculty who must have been attending this session. So very productive. Shaha, a very big well done to you. Very interesting questions and right answers. Actually, we were looking forward to from your side. So we are happy to have you. Yes, very happy to have you, and exactly the right directed answers we wanted, you all have delivered. Saying thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.